Hey, what's going on? I'm Illegal Mist, and today we're on Saltshake's account doing a little account takeover. Saltshake's really new to the game, only about 10 days in now. So we are going to look over the account, give some tips. They definitely seem like they know what they're talking about in the game. So I just want to make sure we can help as much as possible. Give them, week 1, week 2, week 3, and up to a month later, let them know kind of what all they should be doing. And we can check in on them in about a month's time and see how their account's progressing. So let's get right into it. So for this account, we have Kale as the starter, and Kale's built with the lifesteal and perception sets, which is really nice. Looking like a pretty solid build at 173 speed, and he has the 100% crit rate, which is pretty typical for the generic lifesteal set that you get at the beginning. Also 110 accuracy, not too bad. We have a Rhonda, again, she's built pretty well with 175 speed, and we have UDK, who's built really slow right now, only 102 speed. So I would definitely say, if you can, try and get your main champions on this account up to about 175 speed. Eventually you want to hit that 200 speed mark, and while you're doing that, you want to make sure whatever champions need accuracy, you want to make sure they have the accuracy for whatever stage you're looking at. If you don't know how much accuracy you need, you can go onto the Hell Hades website, and it'll show you, based on whatever stage of dungeon you're trying to do, it'll give you the accuracy requirements. It looks like this account had a couple promo codes based on the fact that he has both UDK and Rhonda. Having the Tyrell and Rector is going to be really nice for that decreased attack chance on the A1. So for the earlier stages of Clan Boss, we should be looking pretty nice to be able to get some decent damage. It looks like he also went ahead and bought masteries for both Kale and Rhonda, so that'll be really nice to be able to get the Giant Slayer on her when she gets to 6-star, and then help do additional damage on the Clan Boss. Now that this account has 2 champions with full masteries, I'd highly recommend going and unlocking the gem mine as soon as possible. You want to try and get this as soon as possible because it's going to be able to passively regenerate your gems, and if you're playing for more than 90 days or so, I think it pays itself off, and then all the gems you get after that are essentially free. I also recommend trying to go in and do as many of the progress missions as you can, because you'll soon get hung up with ones like this where you need to do Spirit Potion and Spirit Keep, and those are only open on certain days of the week. So if you notice that on Thursday, the Spirit Keep will open, and today is currently Tuesday. So you want to make sure that you get all of the other missions done, so that way when Thursday rolls around, we can go right into the Spirit Keep and get that mission done. You can run into a lot of issues where you just do the missions lackadaisically, and then you get hung up on the Spirit Keep, and then you spend a couple more days, and then you get over to another one that's like the Force Keep, and you gotta wait 2 or 3 more days to finish that, and it can make your progress missions take significantly longer than if you're just tracking and making sure that you're always stuck on a Force Keep or Spirit Keep or something like that. The other thing on this account, I would highly recommend trying to do as many of the challenges as you can. On my referral accounts, I made sure to get all of these artifact challenges done as soon as possible. It's really important that you do these because you can get free epic and legendary books, as well as a bunch of energy for completing them. The nice thing about some of these challenges is the fact that you get energy for completing them. If you have roughly average luck, you're probably going to go in and be able to complete these with the energy that you get as a reward. So you can pretty much go in, do this one, get the 80 energy, then you can go into 8.4, do this one, get the energy, go in, do this one, blah, 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 like so on and so forth. That gear that you just farmed is the gear that you're more than likely going to have to put on your champions. You just put it on whatever champions, it doesn't matter at this point. I'd recommend doing it on food champions because you're probably not going to want to keep the majority of the gear. And then once you finish that, you claim it, you move on to the next challenge, and you want to just keep completing these as fast as possible. So I would recommend actually going in, just farming these stages with 1 farmer champ and as many food champs as you can. Finish all of these and then move on. Make sure you equip as necessary, complete the challenge, go on to the next stage, do as many of those as you can, and so on and so forth. Again, you want to try and double dip as many things as possible. So knowing that you need to place heal reduction debuff on the Spirit Keep, you need to go in, make sure you time that with when you're doing your missions as well, where you're collecting the 25 lesser potions. So if you have a champion that can come in and do heal reduction, it doesn't really matter who it is. If you just find one of your champions that has that ability, there's probably some uncommons or commons that have that. You want to go in, do that, and then you'll be set for both the missions and the challenges, and you'll double dip, you'll get the extra rewards, and then you won't have to go in and do it again. So for this next week or so, I would say definitely work on your challenges and get your missions put up as far as possible as far as being able to go into the keeps. I would say already having 160 is a huge gain on your account, but you want to be careful about trying to get someone like Ronda up to 60 as well. Being able to ascend a legendary champion takes a significant amount of superior potions, and it's probably not worth it at this stage. With a champion like Ronda, she's coming in and she's providing us with a lot of damage, and she gives us that block passive and active skills, but I wouldn't say she's necessarily the most important thing on this account right now. For me personally, what I would want to do on this account is try and get as many 3 stars on my campaign battles, so that way I can get the campaign rewards. So I'd probably go in with champions like Kayle and Rector Drath. The reason I would use Rector Drath is because she has a revive ability, she has the ability to place a perfect veil, and she has an A1 that has decreased attack. Her passive also being able to heal and give us a little bit of extra resistance will help make sure that our Rector and our Kayle are able to stay tanky enough to survive. I think using a tandem like that would be really nice for being able to clear all of Brutal, and that way you can get that extra Sacred Shard at the end, as well as all of the extra gear and other things that it gives you. For this account, we have 217 out of the 252 stars for Brutal campaign, so I'd recommend trying to go in and completing as many 3 stars on all of these as you can. It looks like you're using Ronda and Kayle, which can be pretty useful for nuking the waves, but if you're having trouble beating the stages with 2 nukers, I'd highly recommend getting your Rector up to 5-star and then using her instead. When you use a champion like Rector, you're going to give yourself that sustainability that you might not have with Ronda, so that way even if your Kayle does die, you can go in and heal him up. There's also some small tweaks that we can make for champions like our Rector to ensure that we get as much speed as possible. In the early game, I would say speed is probably the most important thing that you can have on your champions. I'd say generally your starter champion using that lifesteal gear that you get automatically is probably the best case scenario for them, because it keeps them right around that 170 to 180 speed, and you'll also be able to heal up from the damage that they do. But if you have other champions, you want to make sure they get around that 170 speed in the very early game and get that up to 200 as soon as you can. We can switch up our Rector Drath build, so that way she goes in and she has 2 sets of perception and 1 set of speed, putting her up to 170 speed from the 131 speed that we originally had. Having the double perception also passively increases our accuracy to 173, so that way when we use her for Demon Lord, we can more reliably land that decrease attack. We're losing a little bit of HP and defense, but it shouldn't matter too much, as she's going to be able to go in and cycle through her abilities and heal herself much more often than she would when she's that 131 speed. One of the things to note, we want to look for any substats with speed, and we were able to find a helmet that has 7 speed on it, which increased our speed up to 158, but we didn't have any other accessories that have speed on them in the speed set. So what we needed to do was just choose one random piece that was in the speed set, and it gives us that extra 12 speed just from the 2-piece set. So while you might not have necessarily a speed substat on one of your speed sets, it can still be worthwhile in the early game to just throw a piece on, because it's going to passively increase that speed that you already need. So again, if I throw this shield on, even though it doesn't have any speed substats, it's still going to increase our speed up to 170. I'd highly recommend putting Rector in this build because you're going to be able to use her much more effectively. Another thing you really want to do in the early game is use the Forge as much as possible. Crafting Perception and Resilience sets can significantly improve your account. Even though Resilience falls off when you get to more mid and end game accounts, it's so pivotal to use this gear in the early stages. While our account is so new, we're not going to be able to reliably farm 5 and 6-star gear, but if we go in, we can easily craft this Resilience gear and we can get some pretty solid pieces. Even if our main stats are flat for bottom row pieces like boots, chest, and gloves, we can go in as long as we have really optimal substats like speed, we can justify using that piece right now. I'd say for these 3 pieces, we definitely want to try and use our charms just to make sure we get as good of gear as possible. This isn't the most optimal piece, but we still have accuracy accuracy at 11, so we have the opportunity to get our accuracy up to 22, and then 33, and then 44 if we roll the triple with all 11 rolls. For a piece like this, we have defense percentage and accuracy, which are both pretty solid, and if we pair it up with another piece in the resilience set, we're going to get another 10% HP and 10% defense, which can really help us for things that we need to be more sustainable for. Again, we get another shield. This one's a 6-star, and we have the opportunity to roll double defense percentage, which can really help increase our tankiness. For our last piece, we get pretty unlucky because it's a 5-star rare, but we do land the speed substat, so it's definitely a piece that we want to roll up. I would highly recommend skipping sets like Swift Parry and Deflection in the very beginning, because 4-piece sets are going to be very difficult for you to achieve, and things like Resilience and Perception are going to be much more usable in general content than you would for Swift Parry or things like Deflection. So for really early game accounts, you want to try and maximize the efficiency that you have by using 2-piece sets from the Forge. So we can see from those 3 pieces that we just got from the Forge, this one was probably the worst piece we got with a double crit rate, which still could be pretty useful if you have an early game nuker that you want to put it on. Our other shield that was 6-star rolled double defense, so now if we use this with another piece that's in the resilience set, we're going to get effectively 27% defense percentage because we're getting the extra 10% defense from the 2-piece set, and we'll get an additional 10% HP. So this is really nice for helping our team sustain. Our weapon that rolled speed but had only 5-star rare rolled double speed, so we actually get 14 speed from this piece, which is pretty awesome. So even though it was the worst case scenario as far as rank and rarity, it's still a useful piece for us early game, and 14 speed is pretty solid. So I'm going to switch over the Rector build from the previous one that we had into this one. That way we get the 170-ish speed threshold as well as the accuracy that we need to help land that decrease attack. Our Tyrell build right now, we only have 140 speed and almost no accuracy, so I'm going to go in and switch this up too. For the Tyrell build, we're going to go with something like this. Again, we're going to lose a little bit of HP and defense, but the main goal is to get our speed as high as possible, and we get a little bit more accuracy. With the count being only 10 days old, 77 accuracy should be enough for some of the earlier stages that we're focusing on, and with Rector as well providing that decrease attack, we should be okay. For the UDK build, we're trying to do the same thing. We want to get as much speed as we can. Accuracy is a little bit lower, but I'm not too concerned because he's only giving us the provoke on the A1 and the fears and decrease attack on the A2. And with Rector and Tyrell as well, we're probably going to land those pretty consistently. With UDK not fully booked, I think it's probably more of a focus to get him faster and more sustainable than it is to make sure his accuracy is high. So we'll switch him into this build and then see how it goes. With UDK, we also get the Immortal set too, so we're going to be healing just a little bit as well. So now that we've done a little bit more re-gearing on the champions, we want to make sure that we utilize them as effectively as possible. We want to focus on getting our clan boss team sorted, and I'm going to go in and make a team really quick. So he hasn't used the key for clan boss yet, and we're going to go in and hit hard. I think normally he throws 3 keys into hard, and you want 11 million to make sure that you get the top chest. So let's go in and see how they do now that our builds are redone. We also changed up the priorities for this team too, so that UDK is always going to be trying to put up his shield and heals. And then we want Tyrell to not use his A3 because it's going to basically just take a chance away from us landing decrease attack. But with our Tyrell, Rector, and UDK, we should be getting a pretty significant amount of decrease attacks on the boss. Even though UDK doesn't have the accuracy for it, he might help us land it every once in a while. The other nice thing about this team too is UDK is always going to be taking the stun, so that gives us our Kale's ability to land the poisons just as much as we can. Okay, so 3.6 mil damage on the boss on hard, so that means we can definitely get a 4 key out of this. Once we get Rhonda up to 6-star and get Giant Slayer on her, it should be a pretty easy 2 key. And if we just get Rector and Tyrell built up to 5-star as well, we shouldn't have much of an issue getting a 2 key or even a 1 key for this. With our champions running at higher speeds, it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to go in and cycle through our abilities. Landing the decrease attack with Rector and Tyrell was really important. When we didn't have it, we got slammed pretty hard by the boss. So definitely a good thing having them with higher accuracy and speed so that they can more consistently and effectively land those. But yeah, definitely a solid 1 key as far as being 10 days into the game with only 1 6-star. This account just hit level 40 as well, so they can go in and start doing Doom Tower. I'd highly recommend go as high as you can, and if you have to, manual some of the stages, as some stages are a little bit more difficult than others. Eventually you're going to get hard stuck somewhere, but just keep at it and keep doing it. It's definitely well worth the time and investment that you put in. You'll be able to get a lot of energy and gems and things like that to help progress your account. Champions that I'd prioritize in order for getting your next 6 stars, definitely Rhonda, because we have the masteries already. I'd probably then do Rector and Tayrel. And then after that, you can potentially work on UDK. For UDK, I wouldn't necessarily focus primarily on him right now. I think you're going to get a lot of use out of your Tayrel with the decreased defense and the decreased attack and stun. And Rector is going to provide you with some more healing and ability to sustain. I think UDK does a really good job just at 5-star right now. But if you find any issues where you think UDK could fill him in, you can always go in and prioritize him over someone like Tayrel. We had talked previously and you had said that you wanted to use these champions in your Master Vault to help level up your Rhonda to 6-star, but I'd throw caution to this as you don't want to use champions that are epics for your food. I know right now it seems like you just want to get your next 6-star as fast as possible, but realistically you want to try and keep as many epics as you can. A champion like Shaman has been typically known as being a very poor champion because she has so many books that she needs and she has a revive on a 5-turn cooldown. But the fact is, I used her to get my 3-star for Faction Wars 21 because she was the only reviver that I had at the time. I had been playing the game for probably about a year, and I really wanted to make sure that I got my Faction Wars done, and she was the only champion that I had that was able to help sustain for my orcs, so I'd really caution using her as a 5-star chicken. Your other 2 epics that you have at 5-star already really aren't great champions, and I would generally say you could probably feed them, but again, Plarium's always doing reworks for champions, and I think Mass Fearmonger is a champion that could potentially get reworked because he's very, very bad. But I'd throw caution at doing this with other champions in the future. Typically, any rare champion that's not used for a fusion can be used as food, and anything rare or below is pretty much always going to be food when you get towards mid-game. But I'd say for now, don't focus on using any other epics as food champions. For farming food, I highly recommend going into stage 6-6 of Brutal Campaign to make sure that you can get some 5-star boots. It's really important to make sure that you get these speed boots and other speed gear because you want to be able to get your champions as fast as possible in order to maximize the amount of turns you take, the amount of heals that you get, the amount of damage you do, etc. So for the next week on the account, I'd highly recommend making sure that you get as many missions done as possible. While you do those missions, also make sure that you're checking your challenges to be able to complete all of these. Once you do as many missions and challenges as possible, you want to go in and unlock the gem mine as soon as possible as well. For Classic Arena, I also highly recommend getting up to gold as soon as possible. It's going to make it significantly easier to fight teams because a lot of people will go in with one champion and you'll be able to farm it much more effectively. For your Great Hall, definitely prioritize accuracy while also making sure that you're checking your missions to make sure that you have all of your missions set up appropriately for any Great Halls that you need to complete. I know in the beginning there's some missions or challenges that you need to do where you get your attack percentage up for your Great Hall bonuses. But when you can, anytime that it says upgrade a Great Hall bonus to 5 or 6 or 7 or whatever it is, make sure that you're doing accuracy for whatever champions you need. You definitely want to focus on your Kayle right now, so getting your accuracy up as soon as possible is a great idea. Because you're so early, you want to try and go in and complete as many Faction War stages as you can. For something like Shadowkin, you have a 4-star champion, but you don't have any gear on him. Just throw any old gear on him and he'll be able to complete stage 1 easily. Pretty much any epic should be able to clear the first couple stages by themselves. So just go in, put random gear on that champion, have him clear the stages, and if you need to, when you want to rebuild that champion, just take the gear off and destroy it. Don't even bother trying to take it off and save the gear. By completing Faction Wars, you're not only going to be getting yourself crafting material for the forge, but you're also going to be unlocking things like chickens and shards that will really help progress your account. You're also going to get some epic and legendary books the further on you get, so try and clear as many stages as possible, not necessarily worrying about the stars at this time. So just a quick recap for anyone that's a really early game account, you want to focus on your missions and challenges as soon as you can. You want to get your first champion to 6-star and get masteries on them, and you can even buy masteries for your second 6-star champion that you want. Once you do that, you want to make sure that you're progressing in both your Great Hall, Faction Wars, and Doom Tower whenever it gets unlocked, and make sure that you're unlocking Great Hall bonuses that will help your champions as much as possible. You want to prioritize speed and accuracy in the very beginning because your champions are going to be able to sustain as long as you get them up to 5 or 6 star at this time. Once you do that, unlock the gem mine and then unlock other things that will help your account progress even further. While I've done a complete breakdown of the Guardian Ring and why I think it's probably the most underutilized thing and well worth an investment in your gems, I don't think it's worthwhile to get right off the bat. The reason I think the gem mine's more effective than the Guardian Ring early accounts is because you can use your gems for multiple things, including energy, or if you needed to, you could use it for shards. For this account specifically, in the next week or so, I'd hope you can get another 6-star champion in Ronda. Make sure that you can get a 3 or 4 key hard team for Clan Boss, and then keep progressing in Clan Boss as much as possible. If you can, try and switch to a clan that's able to down the specific Clan Boss that you're going for, so that way you can get double chests and double your rewards. Not only are you going to double the chance of getting shards from those, which is really important, but you're also going to be doubling the amount of gems that you get from each Clan Boss, which can be really important. Once you get your 6-star, again, you want to focus on the missions and challenges and get as many of those done as effectively as possible. And then you want to go in and focus on upgrading other champions like Rector and Tyrell, so that way you can progress even further. You want to complete Brutal campaign and then focus on trying to get as many 3 stars in Nightmare. And then eventually you'll have more challenges and missions that you need to do that require you to do Nightmare campaign. Eventually you're going to get hard stuck on campaign and you're not going to be able to progress any further. I'd focus again on making sure to get as many 6-star champions as possible, complete as much Doom Tower as possible, and then eventually you're going to want to start farming some of the dungeons. You have Fenshi, who's going to help you a lot for Fire Knight, so I'd recommend keeping him around. I wouldn't put him up to 5-star anytime soon, but once you kind of realize that you might need gear sets from Fire Knight, he's definitely going to be able to slot in if you haven't gotten anyone better. I'd primarily focus on Dragon right now because you're going to be able to get speed, accuracy, toxic, and stalwart sets, which will all help you either on Clan Boss or general progression. Once you get a 2 key on hard Clan Boss, you can try out Brutal, so try and work on Brutal as much as you can, and again, you just want to keep progressing towards Nightmare and Ultra Nightmare Clan Boss as soon as possible, because that's where the best rewards come from. For this account specifically, I'd highly recommend saving all of your shards until the next fusion event is released, and you can see what that champion brings to the table. The reason I say that is because your account has pretty solid champions right now, and I think you could focus on Ronda, UDK, Tyrell, and Rector as all being 6 stars, and you wouldn't regret it for early, mid, or even late game. They're all going to be very useful for you up until mid game, and then end game, the only champion that's really going to fall off is Tyrell, and Rector will fall off a little, but you still might use her for hard Doom Tower, and I still use both my Rector and Tyrell on Faction Wars. So your account doesn't need to pull shards because right now you have a very healthy champion selection. Even champions like Giscard can come in. He has the increased attack and increased defense on a 3 turn, and you have a provoke at 75% chance, with an A1 that also has a 75% chance of decreased attack. So Giscard is really going to help you if you need to provoke enemy champions for things like Doom Tower or for general progression on dungeons. Once they come out with the next fusion champion, and if they seem like a general damage dealer like the current one, Jetney, I'd say probably skip that and just pull your shards for 2x events. But if it's a champion that's worth going for, try and look up some YouTube videos to see whether or not you realistically can go for that champion, and I highly recommend going for anyone that seems like they could be useful to progress your account in any area of the game. Fusions and fragment events are definitely the easiest way for you to progress your account because those champions are going to be much more difficult to get once that event is over. I know you had said that you wanted a gear cleanse, but you only have 86 pieces and you still have 1,300 slots to go. With over 1 million silver, you're looking very healthy as far as your silver count right now, and you don't want to sell any of the gear that you get right now because the challenges are going to go in and require you to have specific types of gear sets equipped to random champions. So you want to save as much of the gear as possible, and you don't have any reason to sell it. I wouldn't focus on selling any of your gear until you get up to 3 or 4 or 500 gear pieces, and then you can go in and sell off the pieces that you generally wouldn't need. Pieces of gear that you can eventually sell off are ones that have primary stats that are flat for your gloves, chest, and boots. But again, I wouldn't focus on selling any of that stuff right now because your missions might require you to equip specific types of champions, such as attack champions, with attack percentage gloves or attack percentage boots and things like that. And if you're just selling all of your gear because you want to keep it clean, you're going to run out of that gear, and then you're going to have to farm specific stages on campaign, and it's going to be a real pain in the butt to be able to farm that and effectively use your energy. That's all I've got for this mini account takeover. Hopefully in a month or so we can look at the account and see where we've progressed, but I think it's looking very healthy, and for only day 10 you're looking really solid right now, and I think there's a lot that you can do to be able to progress even further in Clan Boss and other areas of the game. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.